Whether it's in a library, a hospital, or on a train, that little shay sign has a surprisingly deep history. It's not just about being polite. It's a story about how our modern world learned to value silence. So, where did this all begin? Let's rewind to the pre-industrial era. For most of human history, the world was relatively quiet. The loudest sounds were often from nature, animals, or human voices. There was no constant hum of traffic or machinery. Silence wasn't something you had to seek out, it was just there. The concept of a designated quiet zone was pretty much unnecessary because most places were already quiet by today's standards. The main places that demanded silence were religious sanctuaries like churches, monasteries, and temples, where quiet was a form of spiritual reverence. But then, everything changed with the Industrial Revolution in the 18th and 19th centuries. Suddenly, our cities and towns exploded with noise. Factories clanged and banged. Steam trains roared down newly laid tracks, and streets became a chaotic symphony of horse-drawn carriages, vendors, and crowds. Noise became a symbol of progress and productivity, but it also became a major problem. People started to realize that this constant racket was stressful, distracting, and even bad for their health. This is where the first real push for quiet zones began. One of the earliest battlegrounds was the hospital. In the mid-19th century, reformers like Florence Nightingale argued passionately that a quiet, calm environment was essential for a patient's recovery. She observed that unnecessary noise caused patient stress and hindered their ability to heal. Her work led to the establishment of quiet hours and rules against loud talking in hospital wards. The idea was revolutionary. Silence wasn't just an absence of sound, it was a form of medicine. Around the same time, another institution was championing quiet, the public library. As libraries grew and became more accessible to everyone, they established themselves as sanctuaries for reading, study, and contemplation. The classic image of the stern librarian shushing noisy patrons became a cultural trope for a reason. Libraries weren't just warehouses for books, they were shared spaces for the mind, and protecting that shared mental space required a collective agreement to be quiet. This was a major step in codifying quietness as a social rule in a public, secular setting. As the 20th century rolled on, technology brought new kinds of noise. The automobile replaced the horse, radios became household staples, and cities grew louder than ever. This led to a broader public conversation about noise pollution. Citizens formed anti-noise leagues, and cities began passing noise ordinances. The concept of quiet was no longer just for specific buildings. It was about creating a better quality of life for everyone. This brings us to the modern quiet zones we know today, especially on public transport. Think about the quiet car on a train. It's a relatively recent invention, born from the rise of mobile phones and personal electronic devices. As our lives became more connected, our public spaces became filled with the sounds of ringtones, conversations, and videos. The quiet car was a direct response to this. A social contract where passengers agree to trade a little bit of personal freedom for a lot of collective peace. It's a space where you can read, work, or just rest without being disturbed. So, from a spiritual practice in ancient temples to a medical necessity in Victorian hospitals, and now a social courtesy on our daily commutes. The history of the quiet zone is really the history of our changing relationship with sound. It shows how, as our world got louder, we consciously carved out pockets of silence to protect our health, our concentration, and our sanity. The next time you see a quiet zone sign, remember that it's more than just a rule. It's the result of centuries of people recognizing the profound value of peace and quiet. It's a small act of collective respect that makes our shared world a little more serene for everyone. Thanks so much for watching. What are your thoughts on quiet zones? Let me know down in the comments. And if you enjoyed this little trip through history, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more content. See you next time.